let's talk about Monday, May 6th games between the Bruins and the Blue Jackets and the Sharks and the Avalanche. Let's start first with Boston beating the Columbus Blue Jackets 3-0 in an elimination game in the Game 6, winning this whole thing 4-2. If I was a Columbus Blue Jacket fan, this would be such a frustrating game to watch. I gotta tell you, because we start off in the first. Bruins score, but Tortorella challenges it, and he wins the challenge because there was some goalie interference on the play, literally that towed Bobrovsky right out of his net. And yeah, so it was a good call, and we go on to the second period. This whole time, Blue Jackets just haven't looked aggressive at all. And even Sportsnet panel with Kiprios and Friedman and McLean and who am I missing, and Rudy, they're even discussing how there were no real plays happening. Bruins towards the end of that period looked like the more dominant team, and you started to get that feeling. At 12-13, Krejci scores. He gets his fourth of the season, assisted by DeBrusk and Clifton. And the commentators during this play tried to defend Bobrovsky on this goal, saying it was a bit of a difficult shot to save and blah, blah, blah. I couldn't disagree more. It was an awful goal. He shouldn't let it in. It was from the top of the circle, and he had plenty of time to reposition himself, and he should have had that. He really should have had that. I mean, that's been the stories about this whole series, really. It's been about special teams and about goaltending. Because Tuukka Rask has just got better throughout the series, and Bobrovsky has just sort of deteriorated. And I'm digressing here, but you know how sometimes they say, goal scorers can get streaky, right? They go on a stretch where they go dry, and then all of a sudden, it just comes in bunches. Well, I think this one could be said something the same about goaltenders, especially Bobrovsky. I find him a streaky goaltender, because he wasn't playing lights out all season. It was only I'm going to say last month and a half, 6 weeks, whatever. That's arguable. Before the playoffs started, that he started playing really, really well. Because before that, middle of the season, beginning of the season, not so much. And he played great in the first 4 games of the playoffs against Tampa and the first 2 to 3 against Boston, and it just looked like he ran out of gas and he started letting in softies. And this one was definitely one, in my humble opinion, if you can call me that, I don't know. And Blue Jackets they're just not making any plays. They couldn't make a pass to save their lives in this game. Yeah, they did have some dangerous chances, and they did get a lot of shots on Rask, who was fantastic. And I do believe they hit 4 or 5 posts and such. But just like overall, and Panarin is he became such a turnover machine the past few games too. He had stretches of brilliance. You could see there's talent there, but man, yeah. So we move on to the third period. Johansson scores, and this was also a bad goal by Bobrovsky. It was a stoppable shot from just past the blue line, and it just kind of trickled in and up and past him, and he should have had that too. Just another bad goal, and that was just and it was funny because that was let in just after Tuukka Rask made another spectacular save. So the last goal, the back's goal, assisted by Krug and Krejci. Krejci got 2 points in this game. That wasn't Bobrovsky's fault. That was kind of Bjorkstrand's fault. He just wasn't covering his man well enough on the open side, and that was it. And somewhere in between this game, Charles McAvoy, and I want to say it was in the second, it might even been you might have called it the turning point of the game, but McAvoy hits Anderson with a headshot in the shoulder, with his shoulder and his head, and the referee looks like he's about to give him a match penalty, and then he stops short of it after I think the linesman speaks to him, and he just gets a 2-minute penalty for a headshot. And the panel, we're talking about how this might have been because the refs, after what happened in Vegas San Jose game, with the Pavelski hit, how the refs might have been scared about calling a match penalty like that for that same reason. And then what happens, of course? Well, the refs probably know that should have been a match, so they try to make up for it. And they start giving out penalties to Boston, which, there's at least a couple of them. One of them a really weak slashing call, which shouldn't have been a penalty. And so Columbus did get, like 4 opportunities in the power play in this game, maybe when they should have only gotten 2. So, yeah, there you have it there. And then the other interesting little bit to this game was after the game finished, Brad Marchand is being interviewed by Kyle Bukakis, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, from Sportsnet, and he's just giving him these one-word answers. And then he goes into the village scrum in the locker room afterwards, and he's surrounded by a lot more reporters, and he does the same thing with every single reporter. And it was just, I was watching the same panel for the San Jose Colorado game, and so it gave them a chance to comment on what had happened, and it left all of them, Friedman, McLean, Rudy, Kiprios with a real bad taste in their mouth. They all had some choice words for Marchand regarding his professionalism, and to a point where McLean even went as far to say the league might even fine him or even suspend him for it. I don't think that's going to happen, but just Brad, he stomps on a guy's stick and breaks it with a skate. That's one thing. You can at least own up to that, right? And even get a laugh at it. Why not? And then there's the rabbit punch at the back of the head. Why? Just dumb. And then he punches him and he skates right away. Anyways, I'm not here to relive that moment. I'm just saying that is inexcusable. You can't really bring that back up and laugh about it in front of reporters. But you don't think reporters would ask him about it either. It's one thing to bring up the skate stomping incident, which was brought up and kind of made for a funny interview with the same reporter, Bukakis, earlier on in the game, just before the game started. But I mean, no one's going to ask him about the rabbit punch, right? Because he's going to walk away or whatever. But to sort of react this way, I guess he was mad about how the media felt about it. But how else were they supposed to feel? Who feels good about what he did, about punching a guy in the back of the head and then running away? No one's, come on, Marchand. You got to man up, grow up, whatever. Anyways, it left me with a bad taste in my mouth as well, as you can tell. Let's talk about team stats. Face-offs, 32-31 for Columbus. Power play, 0 for 4. Boston went 0 for 1. At one point, the power play was working for Columbus in the first few games in the series, and of course against Tampa. But maybe, I want to say St. Louis, ex-Tampa Bay Lightning player / New York Ranger, who's good friends with Tortorella, who's great on the penalty kill and power play during his career, jumped in to help Columbus, I want to say in February. Maybe they needed a little more time with him, because their power play just went so dry, and they're passing, just timing. They did have some good looks, but still. Anyways, hits 43-19 for Columbus. Wow. And they out-hit Boston heavily all through this series. Giveaways, 10 for Columbus, 7 for Boston. Takeaways, 4 each for both teams. Block shots, 15 for Boston, 11 for Columbus. Shots, first period, 12-10 Boston. Second, 17-5 for Columbus. Third, 12 apiece. And overall, it was 39-29 for Blue Jackets. The goalies, let's talk about them. The one, of course, goes to Rask, who got the shutout with 39 saves. He's now 8-5 in the playoffs. I didn't meow, by the way. That's just my cat. Hey, don't tear the carpet up. Moose, hey. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that. Don't do it. Don't do it. Where were we? Bobrovsky. He got the loss in this game. He saved 26-29 with a .897 save percentage. He finishes the playoffs 6-4. And I know Bobrovsky the last few games just wasn't good enough. He was letting in minimum one bad goal a game. maybe more. And I don't want to lay this all at his feet because, hey, if your team didn't score, how do you expect to blame it all on the goaltender? You can't, right? So, yeah, there's enough blame to go around here, but Bobrovsky didn't do his team any favors. If he didn't let in those first 2 goals, who knows where the game is. But in any case, the 3 stars are all Boston Bruins. Number 1 is Rask, of course. Number 2 is Krejci with 1 goal and 1 assist, +2. Second line center just got over 13 minutes of ice time. And the 3rd star is Johansson, who got 1 goal, +1. And I know he's been playing on the second line and the third line. I can't remember. I think he was on the third line during this game. In any case, he got a goal. He was a +1. He had just over 11 minutes of ice time. That's like barely enough for a third liner. I think that's it. That's all for that game. Boston now goes on to face the Carolina Hurricanes, who have been resting for a little while now. And that should be a great series, as one of the panelists made an insightful comment about how, or was it, no, it was the Bruins coach, actually, Bruce Cassidy, during the interview session afterwards, said that the Hurricanes are kind of like a cross between the Blue Jackets and the Maple Leafs, of the skill, the fast skating and the hitting and so on and so forth. So really looking forward to that one. I believe it starts, I want to say, on the weekend, next coming up. So that's it. That's the Eastern Conference Finals. We're already there. 3rd round now. The San Jose Sharks versus the Colorado Avalanche. This game in the first period was... what? The only thing exciting about the first period is you could see that McKinnon was getting frustrated again, like he did in the last game, like visibly frustrated. Slamming the door on the bench and just and come on, guys, and blah, blah. And it was still 0-0 at that point. Probably shouldn't be so negative with your teammates, period. But especially when the game is 0-0, So, he was being checked pretty closely, obviously, which led to that frustration. And he had some, failed opportunities. But even a comment by the coach, Bedard. I always get the coach's name wrong. Bednar, there we have it. Even he said, it was made public that it was important for his team not to look frustrated, not to visibly look frustrated, because the other team will see that, and that would feed, their drive, their momentum, however I'm not phrasing it properly. You get what I mean. So, I don't know. He didn't do it again for the rest of the game. But maybe that's part and because, in the second period, the floodgates opened. Something of note here, and that it's going to come up later. I believe it's Kampfer takes a running shot at Carlson, and he almost clips him knee to knee. Comes very, very close. Carlson barely misses him. And Dylan from the San Jose Sharks, who just checks everything that moves, goes up to him and shoves him around, kind of like, don't do that again kind of thing. Remember that. Any case, so now we're going to the second period, and the dams open up. Colorado gets on the board first. Jost gets his second of the playoffs, assisted by Kampfer and Cole. Jost and Kampfer were a dynamic duo for Colorado in this game. They were one of the big reasons they took this one in overtime. Did I mention that they won this? Was it 4-3? Oh my God. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4-3 in overtime. So it's going to a Game 7. I guess I should have started off that way, huh? So the Sharks tie it up. Vlasic gets his second of the playoffs, assisted by Mira Nyquist. And Vlasic had a really good game in this, too. He had 2 goals, believe it or not. The stay-at-home, one of the best defensive defensemen in the league, arguably, had a 2-goal night. Colorado then goes ahead 2-1 on a goal from Kampfer, who gets his second point of the night. And then just 10 seconds left in the second period, Burns scores, gets his 5th of the series. So you think, maybe San Jose's got the momentum here going into the third. They score with 10 seconds left. No, we go into the third, and Kampfer scores. He gets his 2nd goal of the night, 3rd point of the match, 4th of the playoffs, and then Vlasic ties up the game again. 2nd goal of the game, 3rd goal of the playoffs, and it goes into overtime. Landeskog gets this one, his 3rd of the playoffs. This was a bit of missed coverage by Erik Karlsson. And that's important, because remember when I told you about Dylan and Camphor almost taking out Carlson's knee in the first period. Well, I want to say sometime in the third, on one of the Colorado goals, Carlson visibly gets upset with Dylan for his lack of coverage on the play that led to the goal. Like, he's yelling at him on the bench. And Dylan just kind of glances at him and just keeps looking forward. During intermission, they reminisced about another time Carlson did that when he was playing with Ottawa with Brassard, who happens to be playing for Colorado right now. And they end up getting together to score the overtime goal in that game. I think it was against Pittsburgh. It shows Carlson yelling at Brassard on the ice and on the bench. And he's quite vehement about it. And this wasn't quite as venomous or bad, but still, it looked bad. You know, to the point where all the guys, all the panel are like saying, you know, if that was me, I'd take him aside afterwards, say, you don't do that again. I mean, it's one thing to, you know, give it to me, yell at me off camera or in the locker room or something, but you don't do it in front of all of our teammates, you know, in front of everyone. There's cameras everywhere. You just don't do that, and I have to agree with that too. And the hockey gods bit Carlson in the butt for that overtime goal because he was supposed to be covering Landeskog on the play, and he was late on it. And so, anyways, I just found that a bit interesting. I still think San Jose might take this going into the 7th game. That's just me. I mean, both goalies didn't look really... I mean, they both made some great saves, but there wasn't that many shots in the game. Speaking of which, let's talk about team stats. Faceoffs were 36-32 for Colorado. The power play was 0 for 3 for Colorado, 0 for 1 for San Jose. Hits were 31-26 for the Avalanche. Takeaways were 18-10 for Colorado, and block shots were 23 to 20 the Avalanche. Shots. First period was 11-5 for the Avalanche. Second period was 8 apiece. Third was 8-5 for San Jose. Overtime was 2-1 for Colorado, and the total shots were 26-22 for the Colorado Avalanche. The goalies. Grubauer gets the win. He saves 19-22 with a .864 save percentage in that game. He's now 7-4. Jones saves 22-26 with a .846 save percentage, and he's now 7-5. And these goalies made some really good saves tonight, but there was a lot of, I want to say, screening involved and tips and just really nice goals that were kind of hard to blame the goalies on in this. The 3 stars. First star, Landeskog, who got 1 goal, -2, but that he got the overtime winners, hence the number 1 star. He played just over 24 minutes of ice time. Second star is Camphor. Has 2 goals, 1 assist, was a +3, and had, get this, just under 15 minutes of ice time, 14:55. Guys playing that good from the very beginning of the game, you could see he's on, and he only played 14:55. Third star from San Jose, Vlasic, of course, 2 goals. He was even in the plus-minus category and played just over 26 minutes in ice time. That's pretty normal for him. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on anything from Boston taking this to Columbus, and who do you think? What are the odds? Who do you think is going to win between Boston and Carolina in round 3 there? And who do you think is going to take this next game? You think Colorado's going to keep the momentum? Because it just seems to be going back and forth in this one. And and then of course the shenanigans with Marchand. And then Rantanen. Rantanen takes, did I mention that? I don't know. Yeah, Rantanen in the San Jose game gets hip checked hard in the high leg by Brent Burns and goes off for the rest of the second period with a few minutes left. And no one in the panel thought he'd come back because it looked like it hurt. But he came back in the third and he played. But you could definitely tell his mobility, like side to side, was not looking good. So will he play Game 7? I don't know. They even went as far to say if you get a Charlie horse, it's not good to fly. I don't know about that. I'm not a doctor, but it was mentioned. Thank you so much for watching. Hit like if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hey, if you happen to have any hockey geek friends, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again. and I'll see you soon.